Welcome to Dotted Lines, our podcast with conversations with functional and fractional leaders about leading across dotted lines with influence to deliver strategic impact and drive change. And I'm so happy to have Nina Schill, whom I've known for 6 or 7 years now, from our work together at Fannie Mae when she was part of the HR leadership team there in learning and development operations. And I'm going to let her take it away in just a second. I want to call out that in Nina's career, she's led major cross-functional transformations, built data and operational strategies, and guided leaders through moments where influence mattered more than authority. In the last 5 years, she's been consulting with national nonprofits and small businesses. And I'm so happy that she is joining us to share real examples of how influence shapes outcomes and why building influence is essential for anyone driving organizational impact. So welcome, Nina.
Thank you for having me, Lydia. It's great to see you again.
It's great to see you again. We've spent a fair amount of time together in Washington, D.C. in our travels with the work at Fannie Mae. And I know you've gone on to work with some pretty amazing companies. But at the heart of it, what I've always really appreciated about you, Nina, is your heart for data and metrics that drive success and that show success of work like this, which can admittedly be sometimes hard to measure. And so that's something that I'm going to ask you to comment on today as you tell us a story about why Fannie Mae brought in the work of influence and business partnering skills, and then how you and we together measured the success of that impact. And as a side note, we were able to share at a conference for the Organizational Development Network a few years back. So tell us a story, if you would, about why influence and business partnering for the HR function and team at Fannie Mae?
Yeah, so we had a pivotal time at Fannie Mae's. It was back in 2017, 2018 time frame that the organization was going through a transformation, not only of where people were working, because they were changing buildings and having much more of an open workspace. This was back in pre-COVID time, as well as the organization was going through their own way of working. And so metrics were really on top of mind and making sure things were creating more efficiently, effectively as well. The third aspect of it was we had a new HR leader who wanted to shift the organization a bit to make sure that HR was not just barely a seat at the table or an order taker, but really the table itself that was connecting all the dots throughout the organization. You can't really change or do any initiatives without humans, and humans are really essential for transformation.
Boy, does that get lost sometimes in the world of transformation of all its forms right now, and the element of humans within that. So yes, there are a few changes. I mean, a physical change, office building change, a new leader, and there were new roles within HR. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So we restructured the teams and had more of changing, like, for example, the business partners. We had a new human consulting group there. And so we shifted the name from being, here, a business partner, let me call my business partner from when I have an employee issue, like an ER issue and so forth, to, hey, let me call I want to really talk to or partner with my human, consultant to help me shift what do I really need in order for my team to succeed. What do I need? What kind of skills I need for a transformation to succeed? Instead of HR being a last minute thought, like, can you fill out this rec for this new person and go through the interview process? So just find me the good people, or I already know someone I need to do a particular role, but to really allow them to partner with the leaders that they're supporting to help really transform the organization overall. Yeah. So it was a pivotal role. And, with that name change, you had to also have some skills enhanced as well. And it was not just, the human, capital consultants that shifted. It was the center of excellences or center of excellence with each department had new learnings in a way that the HR team at that time was structured, that we had to learn how to work together, how to influence with each other as well, and negotiate with each other to make sure you have those new relationships and solid relationships.
Yeah, that word negotiate comes up a lot, and the intra function
Mhm.
relationship sometimes can be especially tricky. Whose business partner is it? Who should they call first? And we can trip over ourselves with the best of intentions and the best of the expertise that everybody's bringing to bear. Um, and so you described, what I thought was, for a lot of workshops that I've been involved in over the years in influence and business partnering at a lot of companies, you structured the series to be the true cascade approach from the HR leadership team to the human capital consultants to the centers of excellence. Uh,
Yes.
Sometimes people have mixed feelings about that. Is that a commentary on people's value? Is it lots of ways to look at that? But that was very deliberate. Tell me about why that was and how that worked to work with the HR
Um,
leadership team first.
yeah. So I think we wanted to, one, have that team, the HR leadership team. They were, new leaders, sometimes in new roles, and having that team norm,
Mm-hmm.
and get together and learning these skills that we can start using with our own teams as well, and using with other leaders throughout the organization. And so it was really helpful. It was really important or critical for the HR leadership team to set the example first. For that, yes, there's many times the bottom up approach or different levels work well, but for this approach, I found it that it was the best approach to do. And then we started with the human capital, consultants coming in, and then the rest of the COEs, as Lydia, you mentioned. And I think with each of them, we measured like successes of what was working well, what was not, and really taking our lessons learned and improving the process throughout each cohort. So the way that I had actually played two roles in this process, I was managing this program, right, as part of the learning and development team. And I was also a member of the HR leadership team. So I was doing both hats, but I wanted to also make sure that we were getting the success that we needed and that it was really making an impact for every level of the organization. So we took a lot of time and effort in doing, pre-surveys, like assessments of the class, coaching, serving the coaching, getting, scores and how that was going, the feedback sessions, as well as like post-survey, like how are you doing this after the training has done? Because we're in a world of metrics. Decisions don't happen without data. And we wanted to make sure that like it was just the right decision for Fannie Mae at that time to have what is their return on investment in it. And
Wow.
it was really critical, and I think it was impactful to really show that this was working. We're doing this at the same way of our way of working. And it really aligned together on how people were working together, and using both of those skills, like we're having, stand-up meetings and working together, but using those skills that we learned throughout this, consulting skills program really helped. And it was a great marriage together.
Yeah.
And it really, I think, enhanced the way teams were really back to norming again and
Yeah.
influencing each other and building that trust. And that was really important as well, because everyone's speaking the same language. And so
That's
everyone,
right.
you knew why you were asking some of the questions, because you both were like, oh, I understand why you're asking this, because we want to get to this same point to how we can work together and further build that trust.
Yeah, and Nina, I have to say, you did as much work as anybody over 15 years of doing these workshops that I had ever worked with to operationalize this. So it was not a one and done. So this is my shout out to you. And in the bigger picture of this discussion, what was especially helpful that you led the effort to do was all of what you described. And I would add what we had we started the process at least of integrating the skills into the performance management system.
Mm-hmm.
The skills around being able to push back on requests that weren't of strategic value, the ability to have tough conversations, the ability to create a feeling of trust in very specific, concrete, actionable ways. So yeah, you there were some best practices that I think you modeled.
Mm-hmm.
One other that I wanted to call out as you described the three levels too, that I noticed as a coach then of many of the participants in this process was that the senior leaders were getting data while respecting confidentiality, but getting data about their teams and other parts of the HR function about what about this process of a new way of working, being consultative to the business as opposed to reactive or order takers, that enabled those leaders to better support their team members. So
absolutely,
the iterative process of it that you designed was had a lot of best practices in it.
Yeah, and thank you for again, and having that in their the performance review and having those best practices were really important, because we want to make sure what we are doing hopefully stem through other parts of the organization and saw that transformation for HR as well.
Yeah.
And transforming them back to what I stated at the beginning, instead of being, the order taker, note taker, thinking you're like, oh, I really need, as soon as a leader outside, even within the HR organization, I needed, some assistance, or let me talk to somebody else that I can trust and have a different skill set. We can't be the best at everything. And so it's ability to understand that and learn that, say, like, I need to partner with somebody else in order for the greater good to bring, to your transformation effort forward as well. And I mean, using these skills in my consulting practice almost daily. So, which is great, building upon those as well.
Which makes me really happy, because the way the world is going with lots of fractionalization, if I can make up a word, is we're not going in a direction that minimizes the use of these skills. We are ever progressing towards needing to partner effectively in whatever role we are in a highly matrix, big Fortune 500, as a new functional leader in a PE-backed growth company, and navigating with big strategic questions at a high-paced growth trajectory, or as a fractional or consultative independent professional.
And, just to add on to that, like navigating in a different world. So this is a very much, there's people back to work full time in the office. Some folks are hybrid. Some folks are fully Zoom. Some are, in and out. And it's using how to use these skills. And you can't just go walk to somebody's office all the time, or let me, pick up the phone and be like, okay, come back, come down, and having that, again, that norming together. And this is a way to utilize these skills and adapt them in the ways that work for your particular, I'm going to say customer, because it is your customer that you're doing. Even there's your internal colleague and so forth, you're consulting with them, and they're your customer, for lack of a better word.
Thank you for calling that out, because that sometimes I use this phrase, fast tracking of building trust, because it is true and often not within our control, that water cooler trust building, so to speak, is just not necessarily the case anymore. And we can either accept that and not try to build trust, or we can adopt some skills and some roadmaps for conversation, very specific conversations. We call them the align and assess and affirm conversations that build that trust quickly, that break down resistance more quickly, that get to real, authentic dialogue about success measures and personal concerns and risk, without necessarily having to be back at work or around the water cooler. Yeah. And so can you summarize how the organization was better off for the HR team having built these skills? How did Fannie Mae benefit from an HR team that was, as you guys described it, the table?
Yeah, I think an ability to have more trust throughout the organization. And it's also not only trust, but more awareness of what HR actually does and the value that they provide. I think a lot of folks throughout an organization think, HR will let me do my recruiting, ER issues, like employee issues, but not really realizing, the breadth of what they're doing. The time I was there, one of the other reasons the HR department grew a lot, especially like, for example, the analytics department at that time grew like in triple. So fold. And so it's learning, understanding what the capability of the HR organization actually has and the strength that they have. And the way to do that is to really truly show the value through this trust and partnership and highlighting these successes. And I think with utilizing this methodology of Voyager Consulting and highlighting that it was a way to articulate that much more clearly.
I mean, that's as much as there can be two ways of looking at this. It's a true statement that organizations don't invest in functions that they don't believe in the value of. So that is, in fact, a data point that you capture, that the HR team grew, the analytics team, hey Tasha, grew from that time. And because they saw the value, and part of this work, I believe, is and part of the roadmaps that we've designed for the people that we coach and work with is what we call intentions. I mean, sometimes individual leaders or business partners or organizations don't know what we got till we show them. They don't ask for what they don't know we have to offer. And we can get frustrated about that, or we can say, hey, I can do more for you than this. I can fill that rec, do that training, create that process, implement that technology, but I also can do more. And I want to tell you about that so that you are better off for it. Are you open to hearing that? I mean, that's that intentions piece that we talk about.
And I do think, to add to that point, that I felt like having those skills provided additional confidence to every member in the HR organization to be like, okay, I know how to handle these situations. If somebody is not as receptive, these are the kind of things I should say. Or if they are receptive, these are the things I can build upon. And how to navigate different types of individuals that you have to deal with. But having that confidence, like, okay, I have these tools in my toolkit, and how do I use them properly or successfully to be able to do that?
I'm so glad you brought up the word confidence. It's something that sometimes can sound like maybe I'm too senior to have to worry about confidence. Maybe I'm I've too big a title for that to be a thing. My personal belief is that when we get really grounded in who we are and what we have to offer as a professional in an organization, and then have tools that enable us to unapologetically and confidently and compassionately offer that to others, there's nothing that builds confidence quite like that.
And remember, like, everybody's a learner. Like, everyone's continuing learning. There's so many things that are happening today, just AI and so forth, and you always constantly need to learn. You have to know, like, I don't know everything, and so you have to use different folks to help. I think I mentioned a point a little bit earlier about that, but it's really helpful, to be, put your weight. I need help too, and able to have that confidence to do so. I'm like, okay, I need to then partner with somebody else, to help me with XYZ thing that I need that transformation with, or so forth. Is important as well.
Yeah, I can be I've used the analogy of a general practitioner at times. I can be a general practitioner for my business partners and not necessarily a specialist in every area of medicine. But that doesn't mean I don't want to be a really good general practitioner that then does pull in other people. Doesn't minimize my value, makes me valuable to my business partner and to the people I'm bringing in who can be of added value.
Yeah. And adding on to that point, it's just, it's that change management, the methodology, just understanding that individuals you have to keep changing. And it's part of that change curve of how you feel. And it's different points at different times about different things, but it's that continuation of change. And using these skills help you with, like, that success and that confidence of that change. Like, I got this change. I know what questions to ask, and I know it's continually, that change for that.
Yeah. So I can just walk alongside my partner as their as someone who can help them. I don't drop in with all my brilliance necessarily, and I don't just do what they want. I walk alongside them and add value as their partner. Last question. If you had one piece of advice for somebody who might be watching this or listening with us now, that feels like I'm a mid to senior level leader who often are the ones thinking about how do I have more impact? How do I leapfrog? in my own career, in my own value to the people that I want to do more for, that I know I can do more for? And where do I start? What would you tell them?
I would start with learning, some of the skills that we learned when I partnered with you, Lydia. That was really helpful in learning how to navigate the unknown and navigate different types of customers that you deal with, and ability to have that confidence in yourself to do so, because you do have that toolkit to do so, and pulling out the different tools depending on the situations, because it's not one size fits all, and you have to shift and adjust accordingly to the situation. And then having that confidence, like, okay, I can handle these different situations because of the skills that I've learned, that I think would be really helpful to have.
That's awesome. The toolkits, the roadmaps that give me that confidence, start to take advantage of those.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of resources that we have, if people are listening and interested, we have a community where we offer a 4-week challenge to walk through what we call the Power of One conversation to, at the end of that 4 weeks, have a transformed, important stakeholder relationship. We actually have some great data that you and I presented that's in the public domain. So I'm happy to share that with watchers, listeners, and certainly our coaching and workshop offerings for individual leaders as well as intact teams. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, measuring the impact is key.
Yes, you are the master of that. That really leveled the whole process up and held people accountable to implementing what was being invested in.
Yeah, so the data speaks volumes. It's like trusting the data.
Trust the data. Thank you so much for your time, Nina. It's always such a pleasure to be with you. And I so enjoyed our work together. So, and I'm so happy that you are doing really great work with pretty big name nonprofits and businesses out there. So congrats on the success.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure.